Hello, everyone, and welcome to Fan Sports New York Varsity. I'm your host, Frank Langella, joined by my co-host, Marsilio Langella. And Mars, this is our Week 6 preview for Section 1A football. We're reaching the end of the regular season. People are battling for playoff position, and those teams that are out of it are battling to upset those teams and give these seniors one last opportunity and an opportunity for young players to make statements going forward. Mars, how's it going, brother?
Yeah, it's going well. I feel like as you get closer and closer to the playoffs, the tension starts to rise, and this week was just another added, week full of those matchups that are going to be extremely important for rankings and for just playoff contention. So it's extremely exciting to see that we're getting closer to playoff football.
Absolutely. I want to welcome our fans. We appreciate you guys joining us as always. And if you're new, we cover Section 1 football. Make sure you follow us on all our social medias on the screen. And you can get all our content on our website at famsportsny.com, where, again, you can get our content. You can get in contact with us if you want. You can also give donations to the show, and we appreciate any donations that we receive, which all go back to the show, as well as merchandise. So if any of that interests you, go check out the website. And how the show is going to work, we're going to go over the games on slate. We're going to talk about the two different leagues and the playoff standings, and then we'll go into some previews and the game picks. So let's dive right into it, Mars. The games on slate: John Jay Cross River at Somers, Yorktown 2-3 at Mahopac, who's 3-2, Lakeland 1-4 at Brewster, who's 3-2, Lords, who's 2-4 at Walter Panis, who's 0-5, Rye, who's 6-0 at Nyack, who's 0-5, Clarkstown North 3-2 at Harrison, who's 3-2. Tappan Zee 0-5 at Pelham, who's 5-0. Sleepy Hollow 2-3 at Eastchester, who's 2-3. And I didn't mention the records for John Jay, but John Jay Cross River's 4-1 at Somers. That's 5-0, which I mentioned earlier. But let's talk about the League North. Again, there's two different leagues. There's the North League and the South League. The top three teams are an automatic bid into the playoffs. The next two spots are wild card spots, which you have to look at residual points. And residual points means they add up points based on who you beat, who you lost to, who you played. So, again, it gets a little complicated when you have to bring math into the equation. Again, you want to get into the top three, guarantees you in. That fourth spot gets a little complicated. Still the playoffs, but it's a little more complicated. And looking at the North, Mars, Somers is 5-0. They're on top. They've clinched a playoff berth already, but a win will clinch the league for them. John Jay Cross River as number 2. They're 4-1. A win clinches a playoff spot, and obviously the game this week, a win will put them in first place heading to the last week of the season. Mahopac is in the third spot. They're 3-2 and 3-2 in league play. Brewster is in the fourth at 3-2. Yorktown is at 5 at 2-3. Lords is in the sixth spot at 2-4. Lakeland 1-4 in the seventh, and Panis 0-5 in the eighth. And when you look at the south side, Rye is 6-0, 5-0 in league play. They have clinched the playoff spot. Pelham is 5-0 and 5-0 in league play. They have also clinched the playoff spot. But again, we don't know who the league winner is. Harrison is at the third spot. They are 3-2. Clarkstown North is in the fourth spot at 3-2. Eastchester at the fifth spot, 2-3. Sleepy Hollow in the sixth at 2-3. Nyack at 0-5, and Tappan Zee at 0-5 are the last two. Let's go into the games, Mars. First one up, Lakeland 1-4 at Brewster, who's 3-2. Another big league game in the north. Brewster in the fourth spot. Brewster needs a victory. A win for Brewster and a Mahopac loss puts them in the third spot. So the first thing you got to do is take care of business. So they definitely need a victory. Lakeland is out of the playoffs, but they're looking to play spoiler. And since 2004, Brewster is 5-2 versus Lakeland. They have won 4 straight. The last time they played was in 2019, which Brewster won. Last week, Lakeland lost versus Yorktown. Brewster lost versus Mahopac. And let's start with Lakeland. Again, they could put the nail in Brewster's playoff hopes this week. Offensively, they want to pass the ball. Last week, they had some drives, but they could not finish. And so, again, the offense runs through their quarterback, Steve DeDucage. And last week, he was 16 of 31, 125 yards. You want to see him be a little bit more efficient again, just above 50%. They do put a lot on his plate. But you're going to see a bunch of the quick game, the quick passes, which can act as a running game. Brewster struggled against the run last week, so I'm interested to see if Lakeland tries to run and establish the run with guys like Vincent Scaglione, who had 50 yards and a touchdown. But their big stud wide receiver, I would imagine they want to give him the ball and give him the ball off, and Tyler Ronk, who's been really solid this season. Last week, he had 9 catches for 70 yards. But to me, again, somebody else has to make plays. And so when I look at the passing attack, when I look at the quarterback, look at Tyler Ronk, who's going to step up and be that next guy who can make plays against this defense? Defensively, It was really good to see number 60, their defensive lineman Kevin Hickey, back. I saw him make some plays out there. And then him and guys like Andrew Mendel, the defensive end, they're going to have to generate some penetration and pressure on the Brewster quarterback. Brewster's playmakers on the outside could cause some trouble for Lakeland. But I'm interested to see if they try to run the ball. Because last week, Lakeland had trouble, and Lakeland's had trouble this season stopping the run. And so I'm interested to see if Brewster tries to attack with a downhill running game, and how this defensive line with Hickey back will definitely help against that. When I look at Brewster Mars, again, I mentioned they need a victory. How are they going to respond to the beatdown they got last week? They had some really bad turnovers that really turned the game early in that game. Offensively, it was good to see their quarterback, Chris Donahue, back. Last week, he was 8 of 17 for about 56 yards. He was definitely rusty for missing all that time, and he split time with their other quarterback, Massimo Perello. So I'm interested to see how they, go about it this time. Are they going to be splitting again? But he'll definitely help with more weeks back. But they got to try to run the ball. And a guy like Anfuso, he stepped up last week at a rushing touchdown, and this offensive line needs to step up. They struggled last week. They got to bounce back against a smaller front this time around. Lakeland gave up last week over 200 yards rushing. They got to be able to run the football. Defensively, this defense has been solid. There have been cracks in the foundation, obviously. They're missing two key stars in Rienzi and Costales, who are big players for them, and they haven't fully recovered since losing them. And defending the pass and covering Tyler Ronk is going to be the big one. I'm interested to see what Brewster does. Do they try to bring pressure? Do they try to go man? Or do they try to bail out in coverage and keep the quarterback in the pocket? But Lakeland, they like to use QB runs. I would imagine they're going to try to test the Brewster running game that struggled last week. So this defense is going to have to step up, especially in the front. Mars, what do you want to talk about on this one?
Yeah, this is going to be interesting because of the fact that Brewster, had a tough loss last week, and now they need to have a win to really push them back into that momentum where they can stay within that top four. And when you look at Lakeland, your job at this point is to just really make someone else's day worse, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like they need to at least have finished the season off on a good note. So, in my opinion, it's going to be about really establishing the run to at least allow your passes to become more big playability. Because you're always going to hit those short passing routes, but if you can establish the run, which has showed that Brewster had some difficulty stopping against Mahopac last week. So, if you can do that, then maybe you can open up your offense a little bit more. Defensively, you need to stop them from making the big plays. You need your front to really slow this offense down. You really need to have some pressure against Donahue, right? Offensively for Brewster, Donahue is obviously getting back into the rhythm, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like you need to have, you need to help him out by having some rush offense, a good offensive line play, allow Donahue to feel more comfortable in the pocket again, and allow him to do his work, do his thing, right? And if you could do that, then your offense is going to be fine. Defensively, the big issue that you're going to have is defending the pass, right? And I feel like you need to do is really be able to capitalize on, getting sacks or causing pressures with a 4-man rush, or at least not have to send the stunt to give your secondary more relief, right? By making big plays without having to send a lot of guys. Because if you could do that, then you'll be in a good spot here.
Let's go to another game, another big league game. Yorktown 2-3 at Mahopac, who's 3-2. Yorktown's not eliminated. If Yorktown gets a win, they're right back in it. So they need a win. They have to win out. And it starts right here. Mahopac currently in the third spot. If they get a win and a Brewster loss, will clinch a playoff spot for them. So both teams, obviously, with big implications in this game. Mahopac, historically, Mars, they're 4-0 versus Yorktown. Yorktown is Mahopac has been in AA for a long time. They've dropped down 2A, so they are a bigger school compared to Yorktown. But the last time they played Yorktown was in 2010, which is when I was on the Mahopac football team that beat them. That's how long it's been. It's been 11 years since these two teams played each other. And last week, Yorktown won versus Lakeland. Mahopac won at Brewster. And let's start with Yorktown, okay? They have been through some health issues. They've had a bunch of guys hurt. They've gone through a lot of stuff, and some of it has been pretty unlucky. Last week, they had no quarterback Mireles. They had no McKnight. But one thing it proved to me last week is that this group is resilient. They have two things going. One thing is this is a resilient bunch that doesn't bow down and doesn't quit. The second thing going for them is that there's nobody who thinks that they can win this game. They are a massive underdog on the road. Everybody you talk to around the league doesn't think Yorktown can win. That's just a fact. And when I look at this offense, obviously with the injuries, the big thing is health. They're not a throwing team, obviously. When Myrelis is not in, and Myrelis is more of a running quarterback than a thrower, but when he's not in, you're not going to see a lot of throwing of the football. So health is obviously the big thing. If they're back, that's great. But assuming that they're not, it's going to rely on some of these guys who run the Wildcat style, guys like Jack Carlin, who had 125 yards rushing, and DeBellis, who he had 106 yards rushing. They can do a little bit of rollout passes and stuff like that. That's going to be really important. Another guy, Giacomo Missiari, he had 42 yards rushing and a touchdown. Running the ball is going to be huge. The only way you can do that is with this offensive line. Right? This offensive line is going to have to play their best game. I talked about it a couple weeks ago against Somers. They didn't. This time around comes the same thing. Will you be able to run the football against this tough defensive front? And it's going to be reliant on this offensive line. And this offensive line is going to have to battle. They're going to have to be physical. And again, you don't have to, it's not about, you're not growing in 3 days, right? You're not growing in 1 day. But what you got to do is you got to be physical. You got to bring that nasty attitude. And I look at this offensive line like guys like Brewster, Capelli, Bowen, Baker. They got to be physical. They got to fight. And this offense in general has to play a clean game. Too many fumbles, too many missed blocks, too many penalties. This is a grand opportunity. This could be the time that we play our cleanest game. And that's what Yorktown's got to go in offensively. Defensively, I thought they did a pretty good job last week creating pressure and forcing some errant throws. Now, you're going up against an offensive line and a rush attack that is really potent. And so, again, I look at the physicality of this defense. If the defensive line and the linebackers are not physical, Mahopac is going to run them over. There's no question about it. They're going to run them over. And again, they like to play an aggressive style. So you're not going to change your identity. You need to be aggressive. And I think stunting and sometimes probably putting your defensive backs on an island is what Yorktown likes to do. And so it's going to be heavy reliant on these guys to tackle well in space. But this defensive line of linebackers got to create penetration. And when they pass, you got to hit home. They got to get to the quarterback and get some hits generated. Got to keep in mind, Marsh, their kicker, Vincent Lyon, he was big time. He made 3 field goals for them, which, again, you get 9 points from your kicker in high school football is big time. This is a guy to keep an eye on. Mahopac, Mars, after last week, you heard them, all the guys talking about it. They said they are contenders, not pretenders. Right, so Mahopac is feeling good about themselves after that victory, and they beat up on Brewster. Right, so Brewster beat Yorktown, so you know where this is going. Right, offensively, they hit some really nice plays in the passing game deep down the field, but this offensive line and rushing attack was dominant, and they took advantage of some turnovers. They took advantage of the turnovers. They cashed in at home. And how about Joey Kochmars at the running back spot? 143 yards rushing, 2 touchdowns. He really was good. Running behind this offensive line, and they are going to test the strength of Yorktown. There's no doubt about it. They're going to try to run right at Yorktown and see if they will bend and eventually break. Defensively, this defense makes it hard to run, Mars. They consistently force you to have these long drives, which aren't easy, and they force you into some mistakes, and they capitalize on it. And that's what a good defense does, right? They make it hard. And it starts up front. They create pressure with their front. Guys like Montalvo, we know we talked about a bunch, but there's some other guys, Porco, Perry. They rotate some guys in on the defensive line who have made some plays for them. And to me, they're looking to dominate this Yorktown offensive line and create turnovers and then go back to that rush attack. And then they'll do the play action. That's the game plan, right? And that's what I think is going to go down in this one, Mars. What do you want to talk about?
Yeah, when you look at this game, it's obviously going to be important for both teams here. I mean, obviously Yorktown is just fighting to survive, and Mahopac's trying to solidify that 3rd spot. So obviously there's going to be a lot of implications for the outcome here. You look at Yorktown, I mean, the biggest story for them is going to be the fact that health has been such an issue, right? And staying healthy.
And no one feels bad.
No one feels it's a common thing that happens for all teams here. And I feel like for Yorktown, it's really going to have to be about the offensive line play. And can they really hold up against this very, very good defensive line that Mahopac has, and if they can play physical, play aggressive, and really hold off this really good front that Mahopac has, led by Montalvo, then I feel like you're going to at least make it competitive. I mean, granted, it's going to be tough no matter how you look at it, but it's going to really start with the old line. And defensively, they've been pretty good. I think it's going to the same thing. The front 7 needs to really slow down this rush offense that Mahopac has been able to establish, because they just have a big offensive line, right? how often do you say that Mahopac is a big offensive line? I mean,
last couple of years they
have.
But historically
not so much. That's
Yeah.
really the point. Historically, they haven't been massive people, but Mahopac recent years has had those big offensive linemen, so that is kind of leading into their offensive benefit here. Their O-line has been dominant, right, and their rush offense has been dominant. And I feel like when you look at, like, Joey Koch had a great game last week, but whenever they run the ball, they've been very effective at getting whatever they want. And for them, the offensive line is definitely going to be the key to victory, right? And obviously their defense has been the bend but don't break defense, and they've been causing pressure without having to send the house, right? Which is what's really important.
Yep.
And Montalvo has just been a force of nature, and I think that he has to show up in this game to really help set the tone for this defense.
Let's go to another game. Sleepy Hollow 2-3 at Eastchester, who's 2-3. Another league game. Both young teams trying to get into the wild card situation, Mars. And, these teams have played each other. This is a bit of a rivalry, too. Eastchester overall, since 2004, 7-3 versus Sleepy. They have won 4 straight, including last time they played in the spring where they won. But last week, Sleepy, I thought, had a really nice victory versus Nyack. Eastchester lost at Rye. And we'll start with Sleepy Hollow. This is a team I feel like is starting to turn the corner, Mars. They have won 2 straight. And offensively, they like to run that double wing. They'll come out in 2 wide receiver sets. They'll motion and run some option stuff. And I think it's been orchestrated pretty well by the quarterback, Mahood, who you have to make quick decisions in the option, and he has done that, along with the quick passing game. But this offensive line, they have been playing better, and they've been opening up holes. I mean, their running back, Justin Soto, last week, 4 carries, 87 yards, 2 touchdowns. And how about the game that Mike Scaglione had? He's their wide receiver. He's a running back. He had 5 carries, 103 yards, and 2 touchdowns, one on a really pretty reverse. But they're up against, and to me, they're going to have some success running the ball. They're up against a defense that has given up over 150 yards rushing in the last 3 games. Now, defensively, they have given up 14 or less in 2 straight. And this is another group that has been getting better. Last week, the defense forced 3 turnovers. They had a fumble recovery touchdown by Mike Scaglione. How are they going to handle this rush attack? So I look at this defensive front, guys like Nicholas Delmonico. He was a guy who helped lead the charge last week, 9 tackles and a sack. It's going to be big. When I look at Eastchester, Mars, offensively, last week was a struggle. I think this unit will bounce back, though, and they're going to run the ball using that physical offensive line and have a bounce-back game. I'm looking at Dom Sparadino. He's another guy who was pretty quiet last week. It's hard to keep him quiet for long. This guy's going to make a bunch of plays. At the quarterback spot, I didn't see a lot of their quarterback, Gabriel Diaverse Herbert. Not sure if he hurt. What is the status of him? But I thought Frankie Provenzali, number 10, he stepped up and played a pretty solid game. And this is another athlete, a guy who can hit you with the rollouts, can hit you with quarterback runs. Again, not the normal quarterback, but someone who can make plays. And getting a guy like Pfeiffer, or again, I apologize if I butchered your name, getting the ball, who he had a touchdown last week. Defensively, this is the 12th ranked defense out of 16 teams. And they've given up a lot of rush yards over the last couple of weeks. I talked about it. Can this defense and this defensive front make plays in the running game? That is going to be the question. If they can, I don't see Eastchester winning this one. So this defensive front 7 is going to have to step up, Mars. What do you want to talk about on this one?
Yeah, when I look at this game, it's really going to be about the front, whether it's the offensive line from Sleepy Hollow has to establish really a run, a consistent run, or even just Eastchester's defensive front stopping this, right? They've struggled against the rush offense, and I feel like this game is going to be interesting because it's going to be a kind of a spotlight between those two, right? And that's my opinion going to be the key to victory is who will outperform the other, the front, offensive front from Sleepy Hollow or the defensive front from Eastchester, and I'm just looking forward to see who has that advantage.
Let's go to another matchup, another really important one, Mars. Clarkstown North 3-2 at Harrison, who's 3-2. Both teams tied in the 3rd slot in the South League. These teams have only played once since 2004, and the Clarkstown North won that matchup back in 2018. Last week, Clarkstown North won versus Tappan Zee. Harrison lost another heartbreaker versus Pelham. But let's start with Clarkstown North. This is a team that has won 2 straight games, seems to be turning it around, and playing quietly some really good football. But they're 0-2 on the road. But I thought this team, Clarkstown North, played Rye pretty tough earlier in the season, and they played Pelham into overtime. So they played both these teams, I thought, relatively tough. And let's start offensively. When you play Clarkstown North, you know you're going to get a wing team masterclass, right? I mean, they like to bring in the tight end. They'll go end over. You'll see lots of pulling and down blocking by the offensive linemen and tight ends. And I think, you're going to see him try to bring in condensed formations and try to run sweeps outside to create some edge issues and for those speedy backs to hit them. And listen, I think you're just going to see a heavy dose of belly, ISO, down. You're going to get those counters, and they run and wash down those guys, open up those C gaps, and get to the outside. And to me, when I look at Harrison, right, they have those two big defensive tackles and defensive ends that show speed, and I think they're going to try to wash them down or kick them out and try to run underneath them. They're going to try to use that aggressiveness against them. But it all starts with this offensive line, and I've talked about it multiple times. Guys like Reynolds, Plouse, Bordas, and their tight end, who deserves a lot of credit, Nick Chaikun, Mars, one of the better blocking tight ends, tall, long kid. And they'll hit you with a few backs. I mean, guys like Loudon, Lopez, but the two big gunners for them is Gilzine, their fullback, who last week 130 yards and 2 touchdowns, and Alex Bilello, Mars, 207 yards last week and 3 touchdowns. This guy is a home run hitter. It doesn't look like he's moving fast, but this dude just glides. This guy can hit that 6th gear really quickly. Everyone else looks like they're going in slow motion when he's in open field. This guy is a dangerous football player to keep in mind. But I'm looking at the quarterbacks, Mars. That's going to be the difference in this game, the quarterback play. And I look at quarterback Lex Maliza, who does the play action. He has some of those quarterback keeps. He has been smart with the football lately, and he's going to need to be. But can this quarterback make plays and avoid those turnovers? Defensively, Mars, this unit has been solid. They're the 6th-ranked defense in A. They're going up against the option. And to me, based on how they're aligned, I think Harrison's going to attack differently. You're going to go up against either some midline concepts or some veer concepts based on how these defenses line up. But the big thing is this defensive line has to create penetration. The offensive line of Harrison likes to have these large gaps to create lanes and angles. This defensive line has to show explosiveness and get into the backfield. And I think these linebackers are going to have to play big. But a guy to keep in mind, if they can stop him and get him in 2nd and 3rd and long, Nick Maritato, he has 5 interceptions. He's the guy who's been a ball hawk in the secondary, and Harrison has thrown some interceptions this season, so keep an eye on that. Harrison, they've lost 2 straight, but I tell you what, I know last week was a real tough loss. They showed physicality and grit last week, and I really like what I saw from them. Offensively, it was a struggle to finish drives. They had that turnover that led to a defensive touchdown. They threw an INT, but I thought overall this offensive line battled, Mars. My concern is a little bit of health. I thought they got a little bit banged up. I saw one of their big offensive guards, important offensive lineman in Haynes, come out of the game. I don't know his status, but that would be a big loss. But guys like Ranello, Carapitas, Ventriglio, this offensive line really fought. But they're going up against a big defensive front. And if they can get by that first level, Mars, they have the speed that they can hit big plays. It obviously starts with Troilo, 86 yards rushing and a touchdown. The halfbacks were a little quiet last week. I want to see if they can try to step up. And again, I look at the quarterback, Garcia and Citro. Again, quarterback is real tough in the option, but you have to avoid the negative plays and the turnovers. They did not last week. Can they do it this time around? And can they get a guy like McLaughlin, who is a little quiet? Defenses have been trying to bail out and stop him. Can they get that guy the ball, because he is an explosive playmaker on the outside? Defensively, again, I mentioned it. I was really impressed with the physical play. They gave up only 1 touchdown, Mars. And for the most part, they shut down this physical running game. And they're going to go up against another physical running game. Different style, but a physical running game nonetheless. But they did give up a couple of big shots in the passing game. And so I look at this defensive front and linebackers. They got to play big and physical again. That's going to be the only chance they did. They gave the defense last week, gave Harrison an opportunity to win because of that physical play. They're going to have to do it again. And a guy to keep in mind, Mars, Nick Reed. The guy went 2 for 4 in field goals, all field goal attempts, over 40 yards. He helped keep that team in the game when offensive drives stalled. He had 2 big 40-yard kicks, Mars. What do you want to talk about in this one?
Yeah, this is definitely a interesting matchup because of the fact that they, both have some key aspects on the offensive end that have been very impressive. And I'll look at first at Clarkstown North. The offensive line definitely needs to perform, right? They definitely need to, stand strong against a very strong front that Harrison does have, and I feel like this is going to be really important for them to really set the tone of the game. But the big thing that's going to be important is going to be the quarterback play, right?
Yeah.
I feel like that's really going to what's going to set the difference here. And defensively for Clarkstown North, they have to have some, they have to win the early downs, right?
Yes.
They have to force Harrison.
All the time.
Yeah, they have to force Harrison into a tough situation where they are going to have to throw throw the ball and try to see if your secondary can make a big play. And for Harrison, you've had really tough losses,
Yep.
and the resiliency of a team is measured by how you react, right? How do you react the next game? And they've been tough, right?
Yeah.
And now it's just, can you put it all together and
Yep.
really limit the big mistakes? Like I said, you have to win the early downs to make, give your offense the ability to get in those 3rd and 3s, 3rd and 4s, something that's close enough that you can now open up the playbook and
It could be
see,
any of
it
those
could be
things,
anything that you want it to be. And I think that's what's important if you're Harrison. And defensively, I mean, you really just have to have a good front 7 performance. moments. Your linebackers need to be able to move and make big plays, and your front guys have to really hold the line of scrimmage.
Let's go to the game of the week, Mars. And this one was another obvious pick. John Jay Cross River 4-1 at Somers, who's 5-0. Big North League game. Somers with a win can clinch the league title. John Jay Cross River with a win will put them in first place with 1 game left. Colossal game. This is a rematch of the regional game in the spring, which Somers won. And historically, since 2004, John Jay Cross River is 6-4 versus Somers. But again, I mentioned that loss in the spring was the last time they played. And last week, John Jay Cross River won versus Walter Panis. Somers won versus Lourdes. Let's start with John Jay, Mars. Offensively, what a shocker. This is the number 1 offense in Class A. They seem to always produce these type of high-octane offenses. They've scored 20 or more points in each game. They've had 3 games of scoring over 40. Now, they're going to go up against a very tough front to run against, okay? This offensive line is going to need to compete, and they're going to have to get those hard-earned yards. And I think you're going to see, obviously, a mix of DTR and Palladino running the ball, whether it's quarterback keepers, both of them in the backfield running those power reads or counters. But I'm expecting to see a lot of passes, and I'm expecting to see some quick passes to almost act like an extension to the running game because of that front is going to be really difficult. And so I look at the quarterback, Craig Galea. He's had 7 touchdowns over the last 2 weeks. Listen, the weapons are not big on John Jay, but they are fast, and they are explosive, and they can beat man coverage. And so I'm expecting to see them test deep when they get into man coverage and to see a bunch of crossers to try to get these guys in space. And what are they going to do against this defense that mixes up coverages? They will go into some bump man, and they like to jam guys. They like to jam and run with them, but they'll go into some zone. And so, to me, this is going to be huge on the offensive line and quarterback because there is going to be pressure from this front. This front is really dominant. Sometimes they'll send in the linebackers. So the quarterback's going to have to make smart decisions, maneuver the pocket. This offensive line is going to have to hold up. And if they can, I think these receivers can have an opportunity. They have to win these one-on-one versus these aggressive secondary guys. But they have the guys to do it. Zaccanino, Shapiro, Savastano, Palladino, DiChiara. I mean, these are good football players. And especially Palladino and DiChiara are going to be isolated. They're going to be targeted by Somers guys. Guys like Zaccanino, Shapiro, and Savastano are going to have opportunities, and the screen game is going to be big, Mars. They got to use that against an aggressive front, and they had a pretty good screen game last week. Defensively, 2 weeks ago versus Mahopac, I thought they were physical, and I thought they brought it, and they had that kind of edge to win that football game, and it really sparked that victory. They're going to need to bring that again because that's the type of physical front you're going up against again in this offensive line in Somers. And so, to me, Somers' offense is pretty well balanced, and the passing game has really been getting better. So I do think that you're going to see this secondary is going to be the most tested it has been this season against guys like Mancuso. So I'm interested to see how they play him. He's been really electric. But Somers has that strong O-line play, and I do think they're going to try to test the strength of Cross River, especially early in this game. But let's go to Somers, Mars. Offensively, I kind of mentioned it. They're really improving. They're balanced. You see the playbook opening up, mixing it up between wing T and other concepts. But you can't do that without good O-line play. And that's an unsung hero is this offensive line that has been playing at a high level. Guys like Polito and them have really stepped up. And so have these backs. These backs have been stepping up. I know we called them out early. They have really made plays for this offense. But I got to talk about this pass attack. Has been really potent. And a quarterback who I've been butchering his name all this time, and I hope I say it right this time, Fitzsimons, right? It's not Fitzsimmons. I think it's Fitzsimons, and I do apologize for butchering, but he has been really good. I mean, last week, Mars, he was 9 of 10, 143 yards, and 4 touchdowns. He was completing 90% of his passes, and a guy that is really electric at the wide receiver spot. They have multiple guys, but Mancuso is the top dog to me. He had 2 touchdowns, and they're going to be going to him. Defensively, Mars, this is the number 1 defense, so this is a classic number 1 offense versus number 1 defense. And this front 7 is as good as anyone, especially against the run. Guys like Fowler, Polito, Kreco, Kraus, Kennedy, they are dynamic. These guys have playmakers at each level, and they're very involved in the running game. And they're going up against probably the fastest weapons they've seen. So this secondary, to me, is really going to be tested. So I'm looking at guys like Olafers, Mancuso, Marcus. They're going to mix up coverages between man, cover 2, and different zones. But I do think that they have to key in on Palladino, who has been John Jay's most versatile and most reliable offensive player. I'm interested to see how they play him in coverage when he lines up on the outside and when he lines up in the backfield, I would imagine they're going to bring 5-man fronts when he's in the backfield. Marsh, what do you want to talk about before we get to the player and matchup?
I mean, this is definitely a showdown. I mean, the winner basically is number one, right? Yep. And I feel like that's going to set up the playoffs so well. And it's kind of fitting that this is the final showdown of these top teams. And I feel like it kind of sets the stage for that number one offense versus that number one defense, just like it was in the springtime. And I feel like that's going to just be I can't tell really who has the advantage. I feel like John Jay has just momentum going for him, and Somers has just been beating up on every team that they face up against. So It's just going to be interesting to see how they go about this. But John Jay has speed, and their offensive line has been playing well. They need to continue doing that against this very good
probably best
defensive front that they've seen up to this point. So it's really going to be interesting to see whether or not John Jay has the ability to get the ball to the outside or even just get their passes off with this front. Defensively they have to be physical, right? You said this before. Against Mahopac, they were physical, and you saw what happened. It resulted in a good defensive performance and a victory, right? And now they have to do that again because Somers is definitely going to show the heat. They're going to send a lot of bodies at you, and they have very good one-on-one capabilities. Like the Somers guys have a better chance of winning that one-on-one matchup. So, I think that when you look at Somers, they're going to try to, give you a little bit of everything. I feel like they've gotten better in the past as the season progressed. So now they have more capabilities. Like in the beginning of the season, they only could really, a little rusty, mainly just running the ball.
Oh no, they hit passes.
They did hit passes, but it was not as balanced.
It was not as balanced.
It was not as balanced. And then now that they have that capability, I think that's going to be pretty impressive for them to be able to kind of open up the playbook. Defensively is really where they shine. And I think that this defense needs to step up big time and really try to contain these fast skill guys from really getting to the outside, right? So I think that's going to be the big key things for this game.
And to me, the player to watch, I'm actually going to look at the quarterback of John Jay Cross River, Craig Galea. Big, strong kid, can throw at each level, and they're going to have to attack each level of this defense. He's going to have to play a great game. This is a big opportunity for him against a really tough defense that's going to be coming after him. So I'm keeping an eye. And I did a matchup preview on this, and I'm looking at this John Jay Cross River pass attack versus this Somers defense, and how Cross River's pass attack can attack each level, and how this Somers defense is so deadly versus the run that puts you in bad situations. We'll let the audience see it. For this video, we're going to talk about John Jay Cross River's offense versus the Somers defense. And I'm going to focus in on the passing game of John Jay Cross River because I feel it's going to be extremely important because running the ball is going to be tough versus that defense. And this passing offense is pretty potent. I mean, coaches does a good job of designing routes and plays and creating matchups. And they have the speed that they can win those one-on-one matchups and create big plays. And they can attack each level of a defense. And probably going to have to use it as an extension to the running game. Let's just start with the deep ball, right? You're going to see they have 3 receivers to our right, 1 receiver to our left. It's hard to see from this angle, but it's going to be a one-on-one matchup on the outside over here. Quarterback recognizes it, and that's where they're going to go after. He's going to be running a go route. But to me, it's going to be extremely important for this offensive line to pass protect, quarterback to make smart decisions this week. He reads the coverage. Again, the pass protection pretty solid. I let the running back coming up and helping on the offensive lineman when a defender breaks a little bit through the pocket, but he sets his feet, reads the guy, makes the throw, and this is what's really important. The receiver winning that one-on-one matchup. He wins it, makes the catch, big-time chunk play right there. So that's the deep ball, and you see that often. Let's go to another play. Let's talk about the intermediate routes. Similar formation, right? 3 receivers to the right, 1 receiver to the left. This time they're going to see a 2-high safety look. There's 1 safety right here. The other safety off the screen. They're running a cover 2 concept. So they have the cornerback who's going to be in the flats, a safety who's got half the field. And the same thing on this side. Corner in the flats, safety half the field. And this guy hooked the curl. And when you get a coverage like that, what you want to do is split the safeties. That's exactly what they're going to do. They're going to have this guy clear the linebackers over the middle and split the 2 safeties. And that's where the window is going to be. Smart decision by the quarterback. And again, good route combination, but the offensive line's got to hold up. And again, that's going to be big in this game. Offensive line does hold up. You can see he's starting to clear it, and that's where they're going to go with the football. Steps up, makes a nice throw, and then their playmakers, once they have the ball in their hands, they got guys, Zaccanino, Palladino, DiChiara, Savastano. They can make plays in space. So I talk about the deep ball, I talk about the intermediate, but let's talk about the short, which is going to be just as important as anything, especially the screen game. And I saw some nice screens last week, and they're going to use that. They're going to have to use that against an aggressive defense. So what you're going to see is a bit of a flare screen right here with the running back. The linemen are going to flare out, throw a quick pass to the running back, especially when the defense is starting to blitz. And that's what they're going to do. They're going to send 2 guys, and this is going to be a home run. Good call at the right time. Smart decision by the quarterback. Again, nice quick throw. Don't overcomplicate it. Just get it to him. Look at these linemen out in space. When you got DTR out in space like this, that's a bad news for a defense. You can see him explode right there, make a guy miss, and finish the deal. Now, one thing that they do have to make sure is, I mentioned on the other videos, quick, decisive decisions, because Somers can create a lot of pressure. And they created a lot of good passing concepts, and you're going to see a lot of crossers, a bunch of man beaters, and a bunch of zone beaters. And on this one's a good example, right? You're going to see a bunch of crossers right here by these receivers, and this guy in particular is going to be coming over the middle. When the running back flares out, and I think it's smart that they do this, again, there's no added protection. It's up to these 5 to block, especially when the running back is out in a pattern. So it's really important for the quarterback to make good, quick decisions. Right here. Again, both crossers are open. Okay? Got to get the ball out of your hand. In this type of moment, this is probably going to be a sack versus Somers. Right? Now, I do like that he steps up into the pocket, but you got to be careful with this. Blindside hit. They'll really hit you. He finds the right guy, but again, smart, decisive, get the ball out of your hand, get it to these playmakers in space. Don't hold on to the ball. Let's go to the Somers defense. And the reason why I feel that John Jay's going to have to pass the ball is because they are really good at stopping the run. And it starts with the front 7. And you're going to see they have 2 receivers here, 1 receiver on the backside. They're actually going to motion the safety over and create a 5-man box. And when Somers has a 5-man box, they're really tough to run against because these defensive linemen can move and these linebackers can flow to the ball. They create a lot of problems. Again, they're going to be trying to run right at it. They're going to be pulling the guard, but watch these linemen move. Okay, they got a double team at the point of attack, and Fuller just runs right through it. Okay, and you're going to be seeing the linebacker. He's attacking the line of scrimmage. And they just close this thing down. And you see this quite often. A bunch of guys near the ball. Even when you try to hit them with counter action, right, they do a good job of recovering. The linebackers have good awareness. You're going to see here. They're going to try to run a counter. Fake it to the running back. They're going to have linemen pulling quarterbacks going to try to keep it. So these are false pulls. This is they're trying to show run this way, and quarterback pulls it. And I want you to focus in on this linebacker right there. He recovers, he reads it, and he can really hit you. Look at him scrape over. Boom. Big time shot. And again, defending the pass. They'll give you some different coverages. They'll give you some cover 2. They'll give you some man. Probably even some quarter concepts. And this is a cover 2 concept right here. Corner's going to try to jam. Safety's got half the field, but look where the safety is inside the hash mark. It's going to create a lot of space. This receiver's going to be running a fade pattern. These guys got good range. Okay, not the greatest, but good enough jam to force him inside to get the safety a chance. But again, they have the range to close down these gaps. And even when you find a favorable matchup that you think, they'll knock it away because of that speed. This is a good defense. Again, you see a 5-man front by Somers. So what does Brewster do? They go into the spread. They want to throw the ball. Right? They feel that they have matchups. They have trips to the right, single receiver. This safety is going to be cheating over to the trips, which is going to leave a one-on-one. So they're going to try to identify a butt. It's about protecting up front. And Somers can get after the quarterback without blitzing. Guys like Fuller have been tremendous, and you're going to see it again. Watch the pressure. Look at the quick move right there. Boom. Look at the big shot right as he's throwing the ball. And what does that lead to? An INT. This defense can get at you. They can stop the run really well. And when you go into passing, they'll change up coverages and they'll bring the heat. This is going to be a real interesting matchup. All right, Mars, let's go to the game picks. pretty good week again for both of us. I went 7-1 last week. You went 8-0, and Lohud went 7-1. So congrats to you, Mars.
Yep.
But let's go to the game picks, and let's start. I actually want to hear your game pick on this one first, because I think I have an idea who you're going to pick. Yorktown 2-3 at Mahopac, who's 3-2. Big League North game, Mars. Who do you got?
I go Mahopac. Mahopac, their offensive line has been very good. Their defensive line has been better. And I feel like they just are going to try to outmuscle Yorktown, who's been struggling with health. And I think they're going to win here.
Again, Mahopac with that run game, they're bigger. The defense has been playing really well for the most part this season. And again, they have won 4 straight versus Yorktown. They're 4-0 versus Yorktown since 2004 when they played. When I look at Yorktown, and again, this is the strangest thing, and this is no disrespect to anybody, right? But when you talk to people around Mars, they actually compare this game to, let's say, Rye was playing Tappan Zee, and it's no disrespect to Tappan Zee, but people are talking about not does Yorktown have a chance of winning, but how much is Mahopac going to beat them by? That's the conversations that we hear, and it's crazy to hear Yorktown in that kind of conversation. And I know I'm going to be a madman, and people are going to think I am a madman, but before the season started, I picked Yorktown to go to the playoffs and make a run. So I'm going to go with Yorktown because I'm going to go down with this ship, whether a win or lose, and I'm going to say this. Nobody believes in Yorktown. I need a couple minutes. I got to talk to my people, Mars. My people in Yorktown. Nobody believes you got a victory. Nobody. And quite frankly, I think if you ask people in Yorktown, I think a bunch of people in Yorktown around the football team probably don't think that they have a chance. But you know who has to believe? The players have to believe, and the coaches have to believe, and I do think the coaches believe. And if the players believe, then they got to play like they believe, and that's playing with pride. And whether you win or lose really doesn't matter in the end. I mean, everyone wants to win. But I want to see the Yorktown pride, because this is a proud football program, a proud coaching staff, and proud players. And I want to see Yorktown step up and play with that pride and play with that physicality and play with that urgency to say, we're going to play a clean game and we're going to play our best game. And so I'm going to go down with this shit, Mars. I know people are going to call me a madman, but I'm going to pick Yorktown. Let's go to another game. Lakeland 1-4 at Brewster, who's 3-2. Another big-time league game. This Lakeland pass, they're going to pass the ball. They're going to set up they're going to have that quick passing game, kind of as an extension to the run. But I'm interested to see if this run game has success versus Brewster. And Brewster, I want to see how they respond. It was good to see Chris Donahue back. How does he, again, Brewster really needs this victory. How does the defense come back? I think the defense does respond well. I'm going to go with Brewster. I think Brewster at home is a big difference. I think Donahue gets a little bit more comfortable. I'm going to go with Brewster, Mars.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Brewster as well. I feel like Donahue kind of getting back in the rhythm is going to give him the advantage here. I'm going with Brewster.
Lords 2-4 at Walter Panis, who's 0-5. Lords needs a victory to stay in the wild card hunt, Mars. Lords is that power offensive line, and that power offense, I think, will have success versus Walter Panis. I think these backs are going to have an opportunity to hit big plays, but again, when it comes to Lords, it's about defense. Can the defense stop the big play? I think Walter Panis, they're back at home. I think the people are going to be, excited. I believe this is the homecoming. They're going to have pride. They're going to battle. I think Coach Castro is going to have them motivated. And guys like Carlucci and McNeil, they're big-time players for this team. This is a game that is going to be, I think, closer than people think. I am going to go with Lords, but I do think it's going to be closer. It's a long drive over from Lords to Walter Panis, and with them being home and excited, I think it's going to be a close one, but I'm going Lords.
Yeah, I'm going to go Lords too. I just feel like they just are going to try to run over Panis. They have the size advantage, and I want to see, can Panis bounce back at all and make this a close game? I feel like I'm going to still go with Lords though, but I think it'll be a little bit closer.
Rye 6-0 at Nyack, who's 0-5, another League South game. Listen, Rye has clinched the playoff berth with their victory last week, but they need a victory to keep atop of the division or the league. My big question is Caden Whaling's health. Again, he didn't play last week. They obviously need him to go where they want to go, and that's winning a section title. So I'm interested to see what he is and what his status is. But I thought a guy like Luke Golzer, who stepped in at the running back spot, really stepped up, and he had 104 yards rushing, 3 touchdowns. The rush attack wasn't as smooth, obviously, without Whaling. So I want you to see, how this offensive line plays, and other guys have to step up, like their quarterback Kovacs, who's been really good this year. So he's going to have to make big plays. Again, Nyack is a young team. going up against a really tough team in Rye, and the defense is just giving up way too many plays. I want to see Rye build towards that championship pedigree, right? You want to see those units really start to tune up, especially if Caden Whaley's not in. Everyone's going to have to step up as a group. I'm going to go with Rye here. I think Rye does step up and get this victory.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Rye too. Even with injuries, I think they just have more in the tank. It allows them to really be able to do whatever they want on offense. I think they have the advantage. I'm going to go with Rye.
Tappan Zee 0-5 at Pelham, who is 5-0. This is a South League game. Tappan Zee, I'm looking to see guys like Mooney and McCarthy make plays on that offense, and defensively, they're going to have to stop this physical rush attack. A guy like Ruiz is going to have to lead the charge. Pelham has been really good in that situation, but for Pelham, Mars, again, similar to what I said about Rye, what is the status of Thomas Shelton, who is their best player at the running back and linebacker spot? He had to leave the game in the third quarter, didn't return. Pelham regrouped and made big plays to win that game, but they're going to need him if they want to go the distance as well, and if he's gone, everyone really needs to step up. Guys like Fredback, Reen, Johnson. Defensively, though, this has been a good defensive unit. Luke Green, he had a fumble recovery for a touchdown last week. Toe and Campbell made big plays. This defense really stepped up for them, especially when Shelton went out. I think they're going to step up again. I think Pelham wins, but again, if you want to try to build to be a contender for a championship and you have an injury to one of your best players, the group has to respond. And so I'm interested to see how Pelham responds, but I'm going to go with them.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Pelham too. I feel like you said, in order to be a successful team, you have to have a kind of a we have to pull it through this together moment, and I feel like this is going to be that moment, leading them to kind of a more consistent winning basis as they get closer to the playoffs. I'm going to Pelham.
Sleepy Hollow 2-3 at Eastchester, who's 2-3, another South League game. This one was really hard for me to pick. I think Sleepy Hollow is a young team that is going in the right direction. 1-2 straight, and both units have been getting better. Eastchester has kind of been struggling a little bit, especially defensively, but I do think this physical rush attack and guy like Sparadino is going to hit some big plays. I'm going to go with Eastchester in a close one, especially them being home. But this was a tough one for me to pick, but I'm going Eastchester.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Sleepy Hollow, and I think this is going to be a close fight. I think Sleepy Hollow is going to pull off the end. I'm going Sleepy Hollow here.
Big time game right here. Clarkstown North 3-2 at Harrison, who's 3-2. This one was a real tough game for me to pick, Mars. I think these are two very evenly matched football teams. Clarkstown North with that physical offensive line, the rush attack. Defensively, these linebackers are going to have to play big, and the defensive line has size, but can they be disciplined in the option? Can they attack the correct reads consistently is going to be really important. For Harrison, I was really impressed with their physicality on defense. Offensively, they had the speed, but the turnovers had been killing them the last 2 weeks. This one was so hard. Harrison at home, but I'm going to go Clarkstown North. I think Clarkstown North is going to pull the upset here. Harrison doesn't get eliminated with a loss. It makes it obviously harder because they lose that third spot and go into the wild card. But Clarkstown North, I think, is a team that has been playing well that not too many people are keeping an eye on. I think Clarkstown North wins this.
I go Harrison. I feel like with at home, if they limit the turnovers, they are able to win this game. I'm going to go Harrison here.
Let's go to the game of the week, March. John Jay Cross River 4-1 at Somers 5-0. Who do you got and why?
Well, this was interesting. I feel like when, last time when we picked the games, I kind of was saying John Jay Cross River has the best offensive line. Somers has the second best offensive line in the spring.
Yep.
And I feel like I also talked about how Somers' defense, I felt as if Cross River's number one offense was going to outlast the Somers defense. And when you watch that game, it was a fight. Now, granted, I think that there are a lot of guys who left in both squads.
Yes.
So it definitely does change the situation a little bit more. But I'm going to go with Somers. I think that Somers' offensive line is better than John Jay Cross Rivers this year. Last year, I definitely ate some flack for, kept saying Cross Rivers was better and Somers' offensive line had a better game. And I feel like this year I'm going to kind of stick with that. I think that Somers has the better offensive line. Their defensive front is stronger, allows them to kind of open up the playbook a little bit more. Cross River had some difficulties against moving the ball against Mahopac, and Mahopac had some size.
Yeah.
And I feel like Somers has that similar size, but I think they're just more potent on their just all around defense. So I feel like Cross River is going to have some struggles, and Somers is going to win the game here.
You make a very good point. Cross River, one thing, the coaches do a really good job of creating matchups on the offensive side of the ball. They do a tremendous job of giving the quarterback good reads and creating some of those playmakers, giving them opportunities in space. But Somers' defense is really good, and they got playmakers at each level. I'm going Somers as well. I just believe too much in this defense, especially up front. They're going to cause some pressure, which leads to turnovers. Cross River is going to have to be really efficient passing the ball, and I do think they have they can. because they have the playmakers who can hit big plays. But then I look on the other side, and I really do think Cross River's defense has stepped up in big moments. But this Somers offense is really getting better, and they have that balanced attack, which can also keep Cross River's offense on the sideline. And I think that's what's going to happen. I think Somers is going to win this game. I'm going Somers. All right, everyone, that was our show. We appreciate you guys for tuning in. Thank you so much for all the support. I hope you have a football-filled weekend, and we'll see you all very soon.